Bitcoin reaches 90K and Ethereum is seeing positive inflow in the ETF. But altcoins are still having some pain and the crypto bros are saying that they are locked in. What's next and why do I think that my altcoin portfolio is going to do a 10x? Let's get started and prepare ourselves for the next upcoming bull cycle. Before we're going to continue, there are two things that I would like to discuss with you. First thing is we launched our podcast, New Era Finance. The first episode is live on a different channel. 1.5 hours about Bitcoin, gold, what money is, what Trump is doing with our first guest, Bart Brands. You can find the link in the description beneath if you would like to watch it. I think it was a very good conversation, and in 2 weeks we're going to have another great guest. Then secondly, we have partnered with OKX, which means that we're going to do a lot of cool things, and that's why we've got a special action that we can do, which is if you sign up through OKX, then you'll be getting up to 270 euros in free money. You need to do that before December the 5th, and you need to hold a specific amount of assets on the crypto exchange. For instance, if you hold more than 100 euros, then you will be getting 20 euros in free as deposit bonus and additional 20 euros because of this action. Then as well for the Dutch clients, we are having something that is lower trading fees. The markets are going to be crazy. So I want to use a platform that has all the functionalities in there, which is the ability to trade spot, the ability to swap through DEXs, the ability to have a fast customer support, and all things in one platform. That's why OKX decided to lower the fees and even lower than competitors as Bitfavo and Bybit. What do you need to do to get all of these? Go to okx.com/join/cryptomichnl and sign up your account there. If you do not like the actual exchange, you can easily transfer back your assets to your old exchange and continue trading there. Ethereum is finally waking up, at least for a few days. At least with the Ethereum ETF inflow, which is something different than prior to the elections. But altcoins are still kind of suffering. So what is happening at this point? Are we still going to see a capitulation, or is it actually altcoin bull cycle? And as I mentioned, we are seeing a phrase that everybody's saying, we are locked in. I think it's cringe that people are saying that. And I think that there is going to be a massive bull cycle. I completely agree on that. But I think it's going to take longer and it's going to be way more complex than what everybody is expecting. But I mentioned the Ethereum ETF inflow, and that is different than we had prior to the elections. The average inflow or outflow on the Ethereum ETF was between 0 to, let's say, 15 million a day. And now, since the elections took place, it quickly accelerated. We've seen more than 600 million in inflow in 5 days, which is super positive. But there's also a slight negative side to it, which is that based on the fact that the Ethereum price is going up at this point, the grayscale holders are probably also seeing it and looking to get out of their positions in order to take profits and rotate towards something else. So that is something to take into consideration. However, the fact that there's so much inflow in Ethereum is super positive because you need a lower amount of USD to move the markets of ETH. As in, with Bitcoin, you are having a bigger market cap, you're having people that are holding Bitcoin, but the supply that is being traded is significantly larger than when we look at Ether, where a lot of ETH is staked, through which the circulating supply is less, and also the market cap is less. So if the inflow is going to get into those numbers as we see, then the substantial impact is higher. Now, altcoins are not following through, really, which means that we need to look at the actual reasoning why altcoins are suffering. And the actual reason for that is completely simple, which is the yields are still super high. Since Trump got elected as the next president, we have seen that the yields were even rallying up more at that point. Altcoins were bouncing up, so that's positive. That was quite in line with the price action on ETH. But the yields continue to stay high, which is generally not a great environment for altcoins to move in. We need the altcoins to drop, or the yields to drop, and then the altcoins will start to do well. Now, if we are looking at Ethereum against Bitcoin, we can see that it has seen a substantial bounce. We were rallying towards 0.04 against Bitcoin, and we gave it all back. And one of the reasons that we gave it all back is due to the fact that Bitcoin continued to rally massively. And the second reason is that the yields are still staying this high. So we either need to have inflation going to go down even more, or we need to have terrible labor market data, which we've already seen. So in the upcoming period, we are likely going to see a weaker labor market, which is going to be a reason for the Fed to start doing QE or to do more rate cuts. So the question is, are we going to have another capitulation and then rotate back up, or is it just a higher low and we go from here? One of the things that's doing really well is SUI, which is going completely bananas, as the reason for the fact that SUI is doing great is 1, 85% is staked, the other 15% is circulating, and there was a big marketing propaganda taking place around a lot of KOLs that took an OTC deal, me not included. And we had the fact that last week, the first crypto, I wouldn't say influencer, but guy, generally, was joining the Diary of a CEO and talk about crypto in terms of getting more adoption. And during that show, which was Raoul Pal, he mentioned SUI as one of the coins that he is looking at. Of course, he's in the board of advisors, but due to the fact that he's attracting a new group of investors, I think the second leg of SUI just followed through, which is going wild, which is super positive for crypto. But that's the reason why SUI specifically has been making a new all-time high. The rest of the altcoins are still lagging behind. And the thing is that altcoins do move in cycles. So we've seen Bitcoin breaking out to 90K. Then we need to see Bitcoin consolidating, through which the money rotates towards Ethereum. That rotation takes place when the yields are going to go down, as well as then Ethereum against Bitcoin becomes more attractive. And then the rest will follow through. So when Ethereum does well, then the rest of the ecosystem of Ethereum starts to do well as well. It's just a standard way of money flow that takes place within crypto. And the fact that Ethereum isn't making any moves yet against Bitcoin, it shows that the altcoins are likely not going to break out yet, but they are in their accumulation and it's about to be breaking out. So we've seen multiple tests of the altcoins against resistance levels. Some altcoins have been breaking through that resistance and started to accelerate quite fast. And that's the thing. When they break out, they go fast because there's an illiquid supply. There's a lot of FOMO once they crack their level. There's a lot of sentiment on social media taking place once they crack that level. So in terms of looking at the altcoin markets, they go up by 10 to 20% on a daily basis. It's super tricky at some periods. It can be on your nerves. But if you're positioned in this period, when they are accumulating, that's the period when you want to get in and you don't want to chase those green candles once they start to break out, because then it can go by 40 to 60% on a daily basis. So let's discuss my portfolio. I've still got the 8 coins that I discussed a month ago. So let's dive into that. The exciting stuff, depending on how you look at it, whether you would like to laugh at me or whether you would like to have the same portfolio, it's a matter of either of the two. But at least let's discuss my altcoin portfolio, which I'm still holding. And there are still some coins that I have in there that are still doing bad. So my entire altcoin portfolio, I've got a general rule, which is having maximum 8 coins in my portfolio, which is fully allocated towards DeFi and infrastructure and lower market capitalization coins for some. And since the elections took place, the amount of perps on DEXs have been going up. So the amount of volume is increasing on the DEXs. The amount of TVL into DeFi has increased as well. For instance, Aave has been making a new yearly, actually cycle high, the highest point in 3 years. And the volatility on those coins is substantial. So for me as a trader and investor, and I'm in the Netherlands, it is not able to be, or I'm not able to be trading perps at any exchange at all, which means that I would like to trade on DEXs, and it's getting better. So those DeFi projects and DEXs are interesting to have in your portfolio. Now the question is, what's next for those coins and which coins are in my portfolio? So let's just have a small summary of the 8 coins that are in my portfolio. I've got 4 bigger ones and I've got 4 smaller ones. Let's discuss the 4 bigger ones first. These are Ethereum name services. I think the easiest high beta play on Ether. So if Ether goes up, ENS is likely going to follow through and have a higher yield. The second one is Optimism, which is a layer 2 on top of ETH that I think that is actually going to exist in a few years from now. There are many layer 2s, too many layer 2s. With the capital, we are also not investing into any layer 2s on ETH at this point. But Optimism is getting more traction, and I think that it has proven that when ETH starts to go up, Optimism is doing better. So it's also a higher beta, safer play. Then I've got Celestia, which is in the category of infrastructure that I think that is needed for the modular blockchain space that we're going through, and BitTensor, which is kind of the AI vertical that I would like to include in my portfolio. And it has proven that it has been doing well, and it has about 80% being locked up in staking. So those are the 4 bigger ones. The 4 smaller ones are Evo, which is a DEX on Ether, which has options in there. Very bad liquidity, but it has perps and it starts to grow. It is Renzo and Omni Network, which are 2 coins that are connected towards EigenLayer and the restaking model, which is a new narrative requiring the liquidity of ETH to go towards the other blockchains that are using ETH, like for instance Optimism and all those other layer 2s. And that's going to provide more security for the entire blockchain ecosystem, which I think is beneficial. And the 4th one is Rocket Pool, which is kind of lagging behind, as we've seen Aave doing great. We've seen that Compound has been waking up a little, but the smaller ones that have the same data and the same valuations in terms of market cap compared to TVL have not been doing anything yet. So those are the 8 that I currently have in my portfolio. And I think that this portfolio is likely going to do a 10x. Why is that? Well, if we look at, for instance, the bigger coins first. So we've got Optimism here. And when we go back in terms of the cycles, Optimism has been showing some interesting cycles, I would say. So it got listed in June 2022. It rallied from 55 cents all the way towards $2.25. Came back to 68 cents, did a new run to $3.23, had a correction towards 91 cents, and then rallied towards $4.85, which is not a 10x, it is a 5x. But all of these runs have been taking place prior to the actual bull market that we're currently in. You need to understand that when Bitcoin is going towards new all-time highs, the amount of liquidity in the markets is significantly increasing, which means that the upside is going to be significantly larger as well. So in this case, Optimism is still consolidating around the lows of this correction. And I just briefly mentioned that it's touching resistance points, which we have been fabricating here in July, just prior of the Japanese yen carry trade crash. Then we had a test here, actually 2. Then we had multiple tests. And in the previous week, we had another test at 185, but couldn't break through it. Now the question is, are we making a higher low here, or are we going to construct another lower low here? Either of the 2. Currently we're down around 25% of the previous high. From here, it's time to start DCAing into this asset, because once we get towards the actual high, that's going to be the breakout upwards, and those breakouts are going to be the ones that are making the actual money for me in my portfolio. Then the first take profit area that I'll be having is at $4.57. towards $5, which is the previous high. That is just a 3 to 5x depending on where you're buying, but it's expected that, as you can see, that the next leg up will be higher. So this leg here was at $3, then we have one at 5. It is expected that this one is going to go to anything between $8 to $12, which is, for me, anything between 6 to an 8x. So the larger coins are going to yield that return for me in this upcoming run. For instance, Tau, and it's not really providing all the data through this chart as it has been going on for a longer period of time. Tau has been going from $48 to $750 in the previous run. On Binance, it had a bigger or a larger high. So in the previous period, I've been actually building my position and I'm in profit on this one. But as you can see that this leg was substantially high and provided a 15x, it is also expected that the next run from $200 is going to bring us to anywhere between 1.5K to 3K, given the fact that there's more liquidity being added. So I'm happily having those coins in my portfolio, and even though they are not memes or they are not the lowest market caps, they can yield me a substantial return in terms of US dollar value, and additionally in terms of BTC value, because my target is still to make more Bitcoin. As you can see, Tau has been yielding a nice run in October. Now it's correcting back down again, and it's expected to see that we're going to have a big upwards run again. And as I just mentioned, more liquidity being added, Bitcoin being higher, the higher the altcoins will go. Going into the smaller coins, Renzo has been seeing down only. So I've been already accumulating it here, have been DCAing, so I'm still underwater. But what you can see is that going back into the highs that we had in June is already a 5 to 7x from here. As the market cap is smaller, the volatility is going to be higher, the return will be higher as well. Which means that my first take profit area here is around 18 cents. But it's expected to see a higher return. It's expected to run to anywhere between 35 to 50 cents if the bull market really kicks in. And as you can see, we're currently into the accumulation phase, that once it breaks through this resistance zone at 5 cents, it's going to provide that actual breakout, and then it's taking the liquidity and it starts to go vertical. Which, as a matter of reference, we can see an identical chart on anything like Omni, which has a crucial resistance at $10 to $12. As you can see, once it breaks there, the first target is around 30, but given the smaller market cap and given the fact that it's a new narrative, I think it's going to yield even more. So, yes, my portfolio, I expect to do a 10x. I don't know when, and I need to make sure that I'm positioned into those altcoins, and I need to make sure that I trade it the best as I can, which means that once it goes vertical and it starts to wick, for instance, 50 to 60% on a day, I can start looking to scale off, be into stables again, and buying back into the dip, because they will double in a week, they will correct 40 to 50% in a week as well, and it's going to be a bumpy road. But even with having these altcoins, I can have a significantly large return, and I don't need to chase even more risk. The only thing I need to do is be in the positions right now, stay in the positions, be patient, and start avoiding anything on social media regarding those and trading them the best as I can. I hope you have been enjoying this update about altcoins. On Sunday, we're going to do another one, which is about help, my altcoins are not moving. Also, make sure to check out our podcast, and we have partnered with OKX, and this actual special promo that we have is only going to be available for 2 weeks. So make sure to get that account if you want to get free money and if you want to get lower fees. And if you don't like it, you can just easily go away. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you again on Sunday. Ciao.